Kia ora, hello, I'm Philip Duncan. Thanks for joining us for our Wednesday weather update recorded on the 16th of October. Well, we've got high pressure parked over New Zealand at the moment. It is going to drift slightly out to the east, but it is going to pretty much dominate our weather into the start of next week. But at the same time, we've got a couple of low pressure zones to keep an eye on. In fact, two from the west here and another one to the north that you can't yet see on the screen. But on the animated wind and temperature map today at 6 p.m. Wednesday, we've got this quite large low pressure zone out on the Tasman Sea, but it's not likely to come towards us because of the high pressure zone that is parked here over Stewart Island. And over the next couple of days, that high drifts over more towards the Chatham Islands, but it still protects New Zealand from these rainmakers that are trying to all come in towards us. Temperature map, you can see the temperatures around New Zealand sort of into the late teens. That's what the greeny yellow shading is. Contrast that with what you're seeing in Australia, where they're going into the 30s and 40s. So much hotter weather across parts of Australia at the moment. All right, here is the setup for the next 48 hours, starting at 3 o'clock this afternoon. You can see that low pressure zone in the Tasman and the high pressure zone here over New Zealand. So let's animate the next 48 hours to the end of the week. You'll see the high moving over New Zealand and parking out to the east, and the low falls apart pretty much in the Tasman, followed by another low, which is also going to do the same thing. It's going to move out to the Tasman, fall apart, drop southwards, because this is an enormous block of high pressure and it's pushing back against these systems that are trying to move in. Lows like the path of least resistance, so they sort of drop around the edges of it. But you can see with the low forming in the tropic or subtropics and that low falling apart in the Tasman, there's a line of rain and showers here, which does come into the west coast on Friday afternoon. Here is the rainfall for the next couple of days. Not much to show you. In the northeast of the North Island, basically from northern Hawke's Bay, Gisborne, up towards the far north, that's where you're seeing a few showers. And then you get those patches of rain and showers coming in later in the week for the west coast. We're in the weeds of the rainfall though, just a few millimetres coming through for most places. So let's try and break that down for you. Here we are on lunchtime tomorrow, Thursday. You can see the high pressure zone parked here out to the east, heading towards the Chatham Islands, looking after the North Island as well. So it'll be a bit of a cooler start, again, around many parts of New Zealand on Thursday morning, and maybe a little bit colder for the North Island, especially in the eastern side here. But pretty much light winds around New Zealand, a slight northeasterly at the very top, a bit of clouds still around. Most places are dry, but can't rule out a couple of afternoon showers that might just bubble up here and there. Temperatures are warmer, certainly in the south here. You're seeing the mercury going up closer to 20 degrees in some areas, but the southerly flow coming past places like Banks Peninsula and Christchurch and southern Waited Upper Wellington, that's the reason why you're seeing slightly cooler weather along the eastern side. That southerly is to blame, but you go inland a wee bit further and it warms up for you. On Friday, slightly milder morning for most places because you're starting to feel this kind of subtropical airflow drifting down. It's not fully subtropical, but you just get that hint that it's no longer coming from the Southern Ocean area, it's coming from north of New Zealand. The low in the Tasman falling apart, the low in the tropics or subtropics getting deeper around Tonga, and this other low passing through Bass Strait, bringing some severe weather risks into the southeastern corner of Australia and some much needed rain for them as well. So as we go into the weekend, the low pressure zones in the Tasman, they're nothing to sort of worry about, or if you're wanting rain, don't get too excited, because the high pressure bout here over the Chathams pushing back against those lows coming out of the Australian region. Meanwhile, to the north, this storm gets deeper. I do classify it as a storm because once you start to get those gale force winds all the way around the centre, that's what I would class as a storm. But it's dropping south of Tonga here, right on the top of the screen. Once you're going south of there, you're leaving the tropics. And so it's not likely to be called a tropical storm because it's coming down our way. And it runs into this high pressure belt. On Saturday, mostly dry weather, a couple of light showers in the north here. You might actually see though, and this map doesn't really capture it, a few afternoon downpours that might form through the east of both islands in particular, but really anywhere inland might see a couple of those heavier downpours into the afternoon, and possibly again on Sunday, a bit more isolated on Sunday, but the risk is still there. This is the lunchtime snapshot, so it doesn't capture what might sort of bubble up a couple of hours later. To the north, that is the low dropping southwards. It's probably at its stormiest later on Saturday going into Sunday. Surf's up. if you're anywhere from sort of Northland towards East Cape, as that low deepens, a bit like dropping a rock in a pond, the ripples come out. And that's what we're going to be seeing here, with beach conditions sort of going downhill a wee bit for the brave swimmers that are out there at this time of the year, when the sea temperatures are pretty much at their coldest, or just only maybe slightly starting to warm up. But for the surfers, yeah, you're probably like the side of a storm like that heading down towards us. So we kick off next week, and the low is actually showing signs of weakening. It is surrounded by high pressure to the west, to the south, and out to the east. When these lows get boxed in by high pressure, it kind of cuts off part of the feed that helps them spin, and quite often they kind of cannibalize themselves. They use up their own energy and they slowly unwind. So we might be seeing that happen, likely to be seeing that happen as we kick off next week. A very weak cold front on Monday coming into the lower part of the South Island. Don't worry, Southlanders, I know you're sick of the rain. There shouldn't be very much from that, because by the time we get to Tuesday, drier skies, and that airflow coming out of New South Wales and Victoria, so that should be a little bit milder for you, even though there is pretty much a southerly flow coming through next Tuesday. The subtropical low falling apart, even weaker by the time we get to Tuesday, and a sort of a spin-off low forming over here, perhaps worth keeping an eye on, behind this big high pressure zone. But basically, the next week or so ahead, drier across many parts of New Zealand. Yes, a few showers, and we do have to keep an eye on that low. It isn't likely to come into New Zealand, but it's close enough to keep on monitoring. That is all from me. We'll see you again tomorrow, Thursday, with our next update. And just a programming note, we won't be here on Friday. We're making the most of a 3-day weekend after a very busy past few weeks for us. We'll catch you again tomorrow, Thursday, with our next update.